Okay, so we're going to go over how to get something to glow. We want to do that with a laser beam, so if I render this real fast, you can see that's glowing. And obviously it depends on how close we are. So that looks pretty cool. Okay, so what we're going to do is go over some different types of glows and how to make them work. This is a fairly complicated method using what's called a lens effect. So first thing we're going to do is set up our material. So we're going to go ahead and create a material inside of here. So I'm just going to create this guy. You could turn on self-illumination if you want, and that would kind of add some scene color, but that's not really how we're going to do a glow. So if I put that on there and render, we don't really have a glow, right? It's not doing anything. Now it is casting some light, but that doesn't really look like a true glow. So you can see it is casting light around the environment, but not glowing. So what I'm going to do is with this material selected, I'm going to give it a specific material ID. So right here where it says material ID channel, I'm going to click and hold that, and I'm going to go to 4. So now it's assigned to material ID 4. What that does, it allows me to then apply some lens effects specifically to that material. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my environment options. So if I go to rendering, environment, and then I'm going to click on effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an effect, and it's going to be a lens effect. I'm going to hit OK. And once I have that selected, I'm going to go to glow, assign it over there. And then we have all of our glow options. So what color do you want it to be, etc., the size, blah, blah, blah. So maybe I want it to be that bluish color. Okay. And then how do I get it to actually work? Well, I go over here to options and I go to material ID. So I'm going to check that. I'm going to make my material ID 4. Okay. So now if I render, it then gives me that very, very cool giant glow, which we can of course change. Okay, so if I go back into render setup, not render setup, I'm sorry, if I hit 8 to go back into environment, and then effects, lens effects, I can go back to my glow. I can be like, maybe I want it to be super bright, like 250, but I want it to be really small, so I'm going to make that size a 1. And then I'm going to hit render. There we go. That's pretty cool, but it's super duper bright, so I mean you may not want that. Go 50. Okay, so that's giving it a slight glow. And this is what you're going to do for a laser beam, right? So you're just going to put this glow on the laser beam, and it's going to take off, or it'll look like it's glowing, which is pretty cool. Now you might get an error on this. Now we could also switch this to the default scanline render. So if I do that, so default scanline, and I render, it's going to render much, much faster, and you're not going to get a little G buffer error. But there's a different error you can get, which you'll probably will get by default, and that's the one that'll tell you like your bit depth is too high. So if you switch to min array and you render, it might give you an error. Like this is the one. So the following render effects are not compatible with the bitmap, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to go to renderer, and then frame buffer type, I'm going to change that to 16-bit. And then hit render. And you're still going to get an error because it's an unsupported G-buffer channel, that's fine. But now it actually renders in mental ray. So if you decide you would like to use the mental ray lighting instead, that would be the easiest way to do that. Okay. So that's really all there is to glows. They do show up in your cameras, they do show up in animations, so they work just fine. What you're going to want to do is actually animate cylinders flying out at things, and they'll be simulated lasers, essentially, depending on how you want to do it. And that is about it for glows.